Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. And for those of you who are new, my name is Joshua.
And I'm Reilly from Hair by Reilly Conn.
And today we are going to talk about getting your first haircut / maintenance trims while growing out your hair. So for those of you who don't know, I've been growing out my hair for a little over a year. And in that first year, I didn't get a single haircut. But as soon as that year hit, I went to my stylist, Reilly, to actually get my hair cut and then colored to this blonde that you see here. And since I have Reilly with me here today, I wanted to ask some common questions that I know most guys ask when they're growing out your hair. So I actually have a list of questions that I've written out, 5 questions that I think are both relevant to hair growth as a guy, and then questions I had myself. So first question. Should you get regular trims while growing out your hair? And if yes, why is it important to get trims?
I would say yes. It is really important to get trims while you're growing your hair out. So your hair grows from your scalp, but if you're not taking care of your ends, then it doesn't really matter. With your ends, once you get a split end, eventually what will happen is it'll break off if you're not careful. So getting those regular trims can definitely help prevent that.
And yeah, like Reilly said, it's really important to make sure that you're maintaining the ends. A lot of us don't think about when our hair is growing, it's actually growing from the scalp. But if the maintenance down here isn't happening as that's growing out, like she said, you'll have split ends that will eventually break off and could make the whole growing out process a lot more frustrating because you'll think, my hair isn't growing, or it just seems to be slowing down as time goes on. Plus, if you do have split ends that don't break but start to actually go farther up the hair shaft, you could have issues where later on, once you finally do go to get that trim or cut, they're having to cut way more off than you were expecting to get to a healthy part of your hair.
Yeah, I've had multiple clients that have come in and are just like, why isn't my hair growing? I've had no new growth and nothing's happening. And when you look at their scalp, like a lot of my color clients, they have regrowth coming up here, but something's happening down here as to why their hair is supposedly not growing. Everyone's hair grows as there's something happening to the ends that's making it break off, and those regular trims can definitely help prevent that.
So now that we know you should be getting trims on a regular basis, how often should you get trims to keep your hair healthy but still let it grow?
I would say anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks, which is like 3 to 4 months, is a good time to get a trim. 6 weeks is, I would say, like keeping up with your haircut. Like people, if they don't want their hair any longer, they just want to maintain a certain length. 6 weeks is usually what I tell them. So I would say anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks is a good time to not only let your hair grow, but also make sure it's healthy with getting those trims.
And one thing you want to be sure of when you're going in to get those maintenance trims is to not be afraid of getting those trims. I know me personally as a guy, when I'm growing my hair out, all I can think of when I think of like a salon or a barber is I'm just negating all the work I've put in to grow out this hair. But like we've already said, with the health of your ends, if you're not getting those regular maintenance trims, you're kind of doing that anyway. So by keeping those ends healthy, you're helping the overall growing out process be that much better for you in the long run. So yeah, you may be a month behind in your hair growth compared to others who didn't get their hair cut. But like I said, there's a chance they could have a lot more damage than they realize, and they end up having to get more cut off in the long run than you did by getting regular trims every 8 to 12 weeks. Okay, so the third question. I'm afraid too much hair will be cut off. So what should you ask the stylist when getting a trim?
I would say any words as, I just want it cleaned up, I call it a dusting because it makes the client, I think, feel a little less nervous about their trim. Usually when they say trim, I ask them, okay, do you just want it cleaned up, like the bare minimum off, or do you want like a good 2 inches off? And then they'll usually tell me what they actually mean by a trim, because people's definitions of trims are different, is what I've kind of come to the conclusion of. So yeah, I would say maybe use words such as dusting or I just want it cleaned up, the bare minimum off.
Yeah, and one thing I would definitely add to that is when you go in and you tell them a trim, make sure your stylist or your barber understands what you mean by a trim. So if you have to kind of ask them again or like get confirmation from them that they understand, like, look, I want you to give me like a dusting or just the bare minimum, let them know that you are growing out your hair and that is your main intention. And usually someone who's a professional in that field will understand what that means and know what the best route to take with your hair is to make sure that one, your hair looks good and balanced once the cut is done, but they didn't take so much off that they've kind of ruined 3 to 4 months of growth by taking too much off. So like I said, don't be afraid to get a trim, but also don't be afraid to make sure that you and your stylist are on the same page when it comes to how much you're actually getting cut off when you go to get your trim.
Don't be afraid to communicate with your stylist, because I know as a stylist, I would rather you tell me 5 times, don't take that much off, like I'm trying to grow it out, than me accidentally cut too much off because we weren't in the same wavelength.
So question number 4, can a barber trim my hair, or should I visit a stylist at a salon?
I honestly think that you could do either, especially with long hair. Barbers specialize in men's haircuts. That's what they go to school for specifically. As to where I went to cosmetology school, I learned everything under cosmetology. But with long hair, like I cut a lot of long hair even with women's haircuts. So I think that you could really do either, because I think barbers specialize in men's haircuts too, no matter the length of it. But especially with long hair, like I said, you can go to either.
Yeah, and one thing I will say with that, having had short hair most of my life, don't be afraid that a barber can't cut long hair. They've all been trained in that same style. But one thing I will say with a stylist, and the reason I went with Reilly specifically for hair color and then even my trim, was the fact that a stylist most likely is going to have dealt with long hair more consistently on a daily basis than a barber. Most of the time, whenever I've gone into a barber, everyone has a super short fade or they're getting a cleanup and they think long hair is like the hair's barely touching their ears and they're like, oh my gosh, my hair is too long. And it's like, bruh, your hair is super short. So one thing to think about if you are choosing a barber that you've maybe gone to for a really long time to get those really clean fades and clean lines is they're gonna know how to cut long hair, but they may have not just gotten the repetitions as much as a stylist may have. So that doesn't mean your barber can't cut your hair, but a stylist may have just gotten more repetitions and be better at cutting long hair. All right, and the last question, question number 5, which I wanted to share for those of you who are wondering, what did Reilly do to my hair specifically? Not the color, but just the trim.
So on Josh's hair, what I did is basically a simple layered haircut. He has been growing his hair out. I think you said it was like almost a 1 on the sides when you started growing it out.
I think a 1 exactly.
Okay, so pretty short on the sides and longer on the top. So when it grew out, his layers were just a little bit more uneven. So what I did is I went through and I made sure all his layers were even. So what ended up happening is I took a little bit more off, like I would say his crown area, just to make sure his layers were evened up. And then I just dusted everything else.
Awesome, so that is it for getting your first haircut / maintenance trims. I wanna thank Reilly so much for joining me on this video to help answer questions about what you should do when going in to get your first haircut or maintenance trims. Be sure to go give her a follow on Instagram at Hair by Reilly Conn. I'll have her handle down in the description. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and thanks for watching.